Broken heart AITA for destroying my mom's secret family ledger after she died, even though it changed everything we owed each other. I-28F threw away the only thing my mom 58F explicitly told me to save. A plain-looking spiral notebook with a cracked red cover and a single word on the front in her handwriting. Ledger. The notebook has been the quiet center of my family for as long as I can remember. The thing she'd put on top of the fridge every tax season, and then tuck away in her bedroom closet. The thing she'd take out whenever anyone in our family had a money talk. It was not a diary. It wasn't sentimental in any obvious way. It was rules, names, IU, receipts, and a lot of little decisions that somehow steered our lives. Mom died suddenly in January. She'd had high blood pressure for years, but she always pushed herself. Double shifts, church volunteering, picking up my nieces after school, like she was sprinting through a life she was scared would catch up. It did. I was the one who found her. I don't want to describe that part. What matters is, 2 hours after the Emps left, and the house was too quiet for grief, I cleaned the counter because I didn't know what else to do. The notebook was there, under a supermarket flyer, like it had been waiting for exactly that moment when no one else would be in the room. My brother, Nate 32M, has always had a way of making small things feel like orders. At the hospital, he told me, "Don't move anything until we all decide." He meant the big stuff, her jewelry, her old cedar chest, the framed wedding photo that never had a frame because she said frames trap. But when I saw the ledger, I felt something under my ribs go tight. It made me angry that a notebook could do that. Mom used it to keep track of everything. Who borrowed how much, who paid her back, which cousin got tuition help, which aunt promised to cover half the roof repair when the bonus comes through. I hated it. I hated that Mom turned care into accounting. It felt petty, even when she said it was how she stayed afloat. At the funeral, 7 people hugged me and told me it was just so like her, to make sure we were all set. By all set, they meant the ledger. Nate kept saying, "We'll get together next weekend and go through it, and we'll follow Mom's wishes to the letter." He said to the letter like a threat. Our older sister, Julia 35F, was somewhere between exhausted and ecstatic to be useful. She printed labels and a checklist. My Aunt Jeannie squeezed my hand and whispered, "You're the executor, right? Your mom told me she picked you because you're fair." I didn't feel fair. I felt like a person who wanted to put that notebook in a sink and let the water turn its ink into velvet gray stains. But I didn't, because I'm not the villain I'm about to sound like. Here's where I might be the villain. The night before our ledger meeting, when everyone had promised to bring their best behavior and a calculator app, I sat alone in Mom's kitchen and read it. It wasn't what I expected. Yes, there were columns and numbers and due dates. But there were also paragraphs in her cramped, tidy script that read like rulings. Nate lends $600 for breaks. Forgive half if he does the porch staining. Julia, 10 months left on repayment for the emergency card. Pause if she applies for that promotion and needs new suits. Lily me, no loan, give the money outright. Do not accept repayment. I want her to keep it. Next to my name were 3 entries I'd never heard of. One for a dentist bill when I was 22, one for a laptop I swore I bought myself, and one for a first month's rent cushion last year when my ex moved out, and I was drowning quietly with groceries and utilities. Mom hadn't told me she'd helped because she knew I'd refuse. Then there was the debts owed to her list. My Uncle Theo's always next month. My cousin Lee's pharmacy tab that Mom didn't want the kids to see. Julia's promotion suits paused, unpaused, paused again, and Nate's thousands, plural, over the last 10 years. Next to Nate's name there were ticks like fence posts, rent catch-up tires, a revolving cash float he'd return on Friday, and a single underlined line. Mortgage lien if not paid by June 1. Mortgage lien, I blinked. She had written, "Do not be afraid to protect the house." And then, in parentheses so small I had to move to the window to see it. He is not a bad man. He is a man who thinks debt is a suggestion. I realized what the ledger was. It wasn't a list of grudges. It was a map of exactly how my mom held our family together by playing bank, judge, and net. Every generous cash gift had strings only she felt. Every holiday dinner sat on top of a dozen quiet bargains. The ledger made sure what got taken got replaced, eventually, even if eventually meant forgiveness. But it was also a weapon. In the wrong hands, it could humiliate people, put numbers to kindness, make love into an invoice. Around midnight, I poured wine I didn't want and looked at the last pages. There, tucked in a folded receipt, was a letter in the same tiny parentheses script. If I die before I make it fair, Lily will do what I meant, not what I wrote. If that means the ledger goes, let it go. My love was not the math. It took me a long minute to understand. And then I read it again. It didn't say, follow this ledger. It didn't say, divide by these numbers. It said, do what I meant, not what I wrote, and let it go. So I did. At 1:17 a.m., I fed the ledger page by page into the sink and turned on the tap. The ink lifted like night dissolving into early morning and made the water the color of my mother's favorite cardigan. It felt like a betrayal and a benediction in the same second. I knew how this would look. I knew what I was taking away, leverage for some, closure for others. I also knew I didn't want to live the next 10 years watching my brother flinch every time we looked at him across a table with a calculator app open like a jury. When everyone arrived the next day, the kitchen smelled like coffee and damp paper. Julia put out muffins like a lawyer puts out exhibits. Nate brought a legal pad and wrote debts at the top, then underlined it. My aunt set down a tin of cookies and stared at my face too long. I said we should talk before we dive into the ledger. Where is it? Nate asked. In the sink, I said. It took 3 beats for anyone to breathe. I told them about the letter. I told them what Mom wrote about doing what she meant, not what she wrote. Julia's hand went to her mouth. My aunt whispered, "Oh, Lorraine." That was my mom's name. Nate laughed once, a short, mean sound I've heard since he was 16 and lost his first job. So you just decided, he said. You unilaterally set fire to the Constitution. Water, I said. It was a dumb joke, and it made him angrier. You dumped away the proof, he said, sliding into that spot he loves where he's both victim and prosecutor. The ledger protected us. It protected me. It protected all of us from each other. It protected Mom from us, I said. Or maybe it protected her idea of us. My aunt said softly, "What did it say about June?" Her eyes were on Nate when she said it. He flinched. "Nothing you need to worry about now," I said, and then I realized I'd messed up. Because now it was obvious there had been something, and I knew it, and I'd chosen not to make it public. Of course, Nate said. Erase the debts that make you a saint, and keep the ones that make me the villain. Mom forgave more than she collected, I said, and I believe that with my whole stupid heart. She wasn't keeping score to punish us. She was balancing feel with real. She wrote, "My love was not the math." Convenient that you're the only one who read that, he said. Julia surprised me. She said, I believe her. She looked at me the way she hadn't since we were kids, and used to braid each other's hair before school. Mom told me once she was afraid we'd turn her help into something ugly if we got too literal about it. Nate turned on her like a storm changes direction. Yeah, well, I'm not literal. I'm unemployed. He had been laid off in September. He'd promised to pick up gig work and hadn't. He was the one who'd asked to borrow Mom's car for 2 weeks so he could look for jobs and then forgot to return it for 2 months. He was also the person who showed up first when our basement flooded and held the shop vac for 4 hours while I cried. Nothing is simple with him. That's partly why I was willing to drown a notebook for him. You promised Mom you'd start paying back in January, Julia said gently. And Mom promised she'd never leave me, he said. And it was such a naked, childish thing that I wanted to put my hand on his shoulder and also throw my coffee at the wall. You think a notebook fixes the hole she left? Nate, I said, Mom wrote that if we used that ledger to hurt each other, we'd be making her smallest habit into her legacy. She didn't want that. So what's your plan, Lily? He said. Since you're so enlightened. You erased the math. Are you going to redraw it from memory? Make a pretty speech about love paying the mortgage. I told them my plan, which I'd been scribbling on a sticky note all morning like a coward. The house would be sold per Mom's will. The profit split 3 ways. From my share, I'd cover the last of the funeral costs and pay off Mom's visa. Julia could keep the jewelry Mom left specifically to her, no conditions. Nate could take Mom's car outright, free and clear, and I'd front the insurance for a year so he could use it to get to interviews without the ritual humiliation of begging rides. We'd forgive each other everything else. No IU, no transfers, no remember when. And the mortgage lien? My aunt asked, again so gently it hurt. I said there won't be one. She looked relieved and a little sad, which is how love looks when it doesn't get to be a hero. Nate stared at me like he was doing long division and couldn't make the numbers behave. You'd give up cash so I can keep the car. It's what Mom was doing, just without the notebook, I said. Money as a bridge, not a leash. He didn't say thank you. He said you still shouldn't have thrown it away. After that, it got messy. Our cousin Lee heard about the ledger, because gossip is oxygen, and called me crying, asking if the $480 Mom spotted her at Christmas still counted. I told her nothing counted anymore. She was free. She cried harder, then hung up. Uncle Theo left a voicemail about being square, which meant he felt insulted. Julia and I boxed Mom's teacups in silence until the silence softened. My aunt hugged me too long. Nate disappeared for 2 days, and then texted a picture of a job application and separately a beer. By the end of the week, the house looked like the end of a play. Set pieces labeled, props in crates, the air hanging around what used to be our life like a stage light cooling off. The 3 of us met with the realtor. Papers were signed. A number was named that was higher than we expected, which felt both like a blessing and a dare. 2 nights before closing, I went back alone because I wanted to say goodbye without anyone watching me perform the correct version. The kitchen was empty except for the fridge and the faint outline on the counter where the ledger had sat for half my life. I traced the rectangle with my finger like a child. Then I opened the cabinet where Mom kept the mugs and reached for the chipped one with blue flowers. Taped under the shelf was an envelope with my name. Inside was a single-page letter and a post-it stuck to the top that said, "For Lily last." The letter was not poetic. Mom's writing rarely was. It said she was proud of me for learning to choose peace over being right. It said she was sorry for ever making love look like accounting. It said, I kept the ledger so I would not drown, not because I wanted to keep score. If you ever need a number to make a thing feel real, write this one, 3. That's how many times I thought my heart would stop from fear that I raised you wrong. And then you came home. And then you stayed. And then you forgave me things I never wrote down. At the bottom, P.S. Burn this. I don't need the landlord reading my business. I did as told. I burned it in the sink the way I'd drowned the ledger, and the ashes floated like tiny black petals before the water made them soft and nothing. I cried in a way that didn't feel like failure for once. When the sale closed, the wire hit all 3 accounts. Nate sent a screenshot of a car insurance policy with his name on it and a start date of Monday. No thank you, but also no beers. Julia bought 2 dark gray suits that made her look like the version of herself she'd keep if she were a stranger. She aced the second interview 2 weeks later. Lee texted me a photo of her kids in new sneakers with a heart emoji and a message that said, I'm still paying it forward. To someone else. Uncle Theo mailed a check to the church with "For Lorraine's kindness" in the memo, which is as close to confession as men like him get. A month later, Nate and I sat in the driveway of the house that wasn't ours anymore and split a gas station sandwich like we used to do when Mom worked late. He said, you're still wrong, and then quiet, but thank you. He handed me a crumpled piece of paper. It was his own ledger, version 0. Nothing. 3 lines, rent paid, car payment, interview suit paid back to self. In the margin, June 1 is just a date. He'd written it like a promise to embarrass himself into keeping. So AITA for destroying the ledger, for ignoring exact debts because my mother asked me in her small secret voice to do what she meant and not what she wrote, for choosing to forgive numbers in favor of a plan that cost me money and cost us the illusion that everything could be squared. When I ask myself, I hear my mom's line. My love was not the math. And I think about how easy it would have been to follow the notebook literally, to become its bailiff, to watch my brother carry. We could have been right. We could have been fair by the inch and cruel by the mile. Instead, we are weirdly okay. Not fixed. Not cleansed. Not even better people. But okay. We talk more now and apologize faster. We say, "Can I help?" without hearing a pen click. The ledger is gone, and somehow it feels like my mother has finally put it down too. If that makes me wrong, I can live with it. But I don't think Mom would have wanted me to.